Community returned this week. Any fans of Community know that there's obviously the in-joke of 6 seasons in a movie, and we've got to the 6th season now, but we've lost a few characters along the way. Shirley is hard, she's left the college now, and you're left now with Arbed and Britta and Jeff.
In series 5, they brought in Mike from Breaking Bad. And now he's not there anymore.
Gary, what did you think of it? Just give me.
Well, I've only seen the first. There's a doubleheader.
I've only seen the first episode.
I've only seen the first one. I wasn't overly impressed. There were a couple of nice gags, but I think nothing special. I think the problem is they're almost having to, as you say, restart it again. So some of the stuff they showed, I mean, like them explaining about where certain characters were, was a little bit like, oh, this is for the new audience, and they kind of reintroduced it all as, Britta is the campaigner.
I don't think there is a new I don't think there is a new audience.
No, I think they were doing it purely for fans, and it was very much in-jokey, and Arbed was very, it was all made for Arbed, basically. It was people who'd seen the show before, knew for example, he said at one point, "What's happened to that girlfriend I had?" Nobody would get that.
This show is always very, and I'm going to use the word meta, it's self-referential. It's always been very poking
but I don't think
it doesn't need to be now, though, does it?
Yeah, this series has basically been made for fans so they can get their 6 seasons and hopefully the movie as well. I enjoyed it because I like the show and I like the style of it. I think now Jim Rash as the Dean is probably the best thing about it. They've lost a lot of the characters who was quite warm and quite endearing. Shirley was quite endearing. Troy was quite endearing. Whereas Britta's quite a harsh character. Jeff is, unscrupulous.
Well, Jeff is very much the sarcastic character.
I mean, Annie's the only one now who's sort of got any sort of heart. You've got Chang still there, and he's always been quite evil. So it's lost the warmth for me now, and he's quite, not winking and nodding at you all the time, with all the constant montages and stuff like that.
As you say, too knowing, and it was always trying to tell us, but it was always trying to tell the audience, bear with us, we know we've lost people, but we're still trying. And I think you shouldn't do that as a show. If you lose people, try your best to move on. I mean, don't keep referring to them and saying, well, bear with us, we'll get somewhere. They did introduce a new character called a lady's name?
Frankie.
They did introduce Frankie, who is going to be a full-time character this series. I felt like it had lost its warmth and its. I think it's unfair to call it a sweet show because it was never really a sweet show.
It had a balance, though. It had that balance.
But it's lost that feeling.
But I think whenever you
have that innocence about him, that it's sort of lost now.
Whenever you have an ensemble cast and then you have to make changes to that cast, it's always going to upset some fans. It's always going to upset the balance. Community has had problems in the past. The reason it was cancelled is because in Series 4 it just dropped off, mostly because it fired its showrunner and creator, Dan Harmon, and there were real problems with early cast members, particularly Chevy Chase. You've got the problem that it's going to have to reinvent itself. The good thing is, for fans of those previous characters who've left, a lot of them have been rumoured to be returning at some point in this series. And John Oliver, who was a series regular early on.
The only time that shows can lose key cast members are shows where the cast are less important than the story. So say, for example, something like Silent Witness has gone through a lot of development and a lot of different cast members, but that works because at the end of the day, it's about the individual crime story. It's less about the characters. But the best bits for me were Chang mentioning about being the only minorities in there. That it was a group of white people. Jim Rash, as you say, is still very, very funny, and I really find him the best thing about it. But it showed me that what they've got left is either the moany characters or the sarcastic characters, and whether I want to spend half an hour with them a week, I don't know.